All right, guys, so today we're just doing the very first quick step to our snowman ornament. So all you're gonna need today is the popsicle sticks from your craft bag. That's it, you don't need the rest of the stuff for today, just the popsicle sticks. And then you're also going to need a bottle of Elmer's glue. That's it, that's all you need for today. So we're gonna start by taking our jumbo popsicle sticks. There's gonna be a total of 4, and we're just gonna line them up like so. They should be pretty even at the top and bottom and touching each other like that. We're gonna take our glue and add a few dots to one of our skinny popsicle sticks. Now, I don't need to get right up at the edge because the edge will be sticking out a little bit. So I'm just gonna put some glue from about here in some tiny dots down the center. Again, I can leave that top and that bottom part without glue since that's gonna be sticking out. And I'm gonna just glue it down onto my 4 jumbo popsicle sticks like this at a slight angle. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna create the separation between the snowman's hat and his face, okay? Now you are gonna need to let this completely dry, and I would recommend waiting a couple of hours, if not overnight. Then you're gonna flip it over and you're gonna glue this popsicle stick on the back in the exact same way, in the exact same place. So your final product will look like this. So you can see I've got one popsicle stick glued here, and then the other skinny popsicle stick glued in the same place on the back so that they're lined up. And then once you've got this ready, it'll be ready to paint. Okay, once you have both of the small popsicle sticks glued to this and the glue has completely dried, now you're ready to paint your ornament. So here's what you're gonna need for this portion of the craft. You don't need anything in your craft bag except for the containers of black and white paint. I've already taken those out and I've taken the tops off of the containers. I'm gonna set the rest of my supplies aside for right now. I don't need those. You're of course gonna need your dried popsicle sticks. You're also gonna need your paintbrush, the same paintbrush you used for your turkey craft. I have a paper towel for when I switch colors, as well as a water cup. So use a cup full of water so that you can wash up your brush before you switch colors. You can start with whatever color you want to. I'm gonna start with black, and I'm just gonna paint it just like in the picture so that the top hat portion is painted. Before I start, I can decide, do I want my snowman hat tilted like this or like this? If I want it like this, then this is gonna be my front side, the side that I glue the buttons to. If I want it like this, then that will be my front side. So there's really no correct way to do it. It just depends on which you prefer. I'm gonna do it like this and just start adding my black paint to the top portion of my popsicle sticks. Now I'm done, but I can see some of the popsicle stick coming through, and my paint does look a little bit streaky in parts. So I'm gonna go over it even more with a little bit more black. I'm not gonna glop it on, but I'm gonna go over it again and give it some more layers of paint just so that I get a more solid black color. All right, so this looks good to me. Now I was pretty neat and I didn't get too much black paint below the top hat line. If you got some leakage of the black paint onto, below this line, that's fine, but I would say before you do your white paint, I would let this completely dry first, because it will be, if you have some black paint here, and then you go over it with the white paint immediately, you're gonna then just create like a gray color, and that's not what we want. So if you wait for any of the black paint that you got around this area to completely dry, it will be easier to just paint over it in white. Because mine's pretty clean, I don't think that's gonna bother me too much. I can probably cover up that tiny little bit with some white paint. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch colors. I am being careful also, since I got some paint on my placemat. Not to put my ornament on top of that spilled paint, otherwise I'm gonna get splotches on the back. So I'm gonna try to be careful about that. I am gonna wash my brush in my water and then ooh, I spilled some of that. And then I'm gonna just dab it dry before I switch to my white paint. Okay, so I've left my ornament to dry for a bit, and I'm just going back now and adding a little bit more white paint to give it a second layer, so it's a little bit neater and it's a little bit more of a concentrated white color. I'm also gonna go in and retouch with some of the black paint too, because I don't know if you can see in this video, but as it was drying, I did get a little bit of cracking, which is showing the beige of the popsicle sticks. So I'm gonna do a little bit of touch-up paint to the black as well. Okay, so I've gone over it with the black and white touch-up paint now. Anywhere that I saw a little bit of the beige coming through, I went over it with a little bit more paint. I should be good to go now. If you've got any extra paint, you really shouldn't need this unless it's for emergency touch-ups. If you have you glue a button on and then you take it off and some of the paint chips, you can always hang on to this paint for that. Otherwise, you don't need it anymore. You can use it for any other project that you want. We're not gonna need this paint again. I am gonna put the cover on it so that those don't dry out. And since I don't need to use my paintbrush anymore, I'm gonna make sure that I go wash this with some soap and water so I get all of the paint off of it. Okay, that is it for now. We're gonna let this dry again. Okay, once your snowman is fully painted and you're happy with it and it's fully dry, now we're ready to add some decoration. So what you're gonna need is some scissors, some glue, your bag of decorations, and any orange construction paper that you have left from your turkey craft. So in the bag, I'm gonna go ahead and dump out all of my supplies that I've got left in here. And I'm gonna take my red construction paper and my stripe string and just set these aside for right now. We'll do that in the next step. We're really just dealing with the ribbon and the buttons for right now. So what you're gonna do first is you're gonna glue your red ribbon as your accent for your snowman's hat. Now you might need to cut it if it's a little bit long. So I'm laying mine down and that looks pretty good to me. So I don't think that I would have to cut off too much excess. But if yours is a little bit long, you can always cut it to size. I might trim just a tiny piece. Okay, and I found that cutting it close to the tips of the scissors is easiest for trimming. So now we're just gonna add a tiny bit of glue to the back side of the ribbon. You really don't need too much, otherwise it's gonna get bubbly. So dot, dot, not a lot is important here. Okay, perfect. And now I'm ready to use my buttons to create a snowman face and cut my snowman's nose out of orange construction paper. So you can use the buttons that I gave you if you have extra buttons at home, maybe in a sewing kit or something like that. Feel free to use those as well. And you can kind of create any sort of face that you want to for your snowman. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that now. So even though I do have some extra buttons, I'm just gonna leave it as is. You can toss the extra buttons that you have if you have any, or use them for another project. I'm gonna let this completely dry before I move on to the next step. Time to dry, you're ready to move on to the next step. If you pick up your snowman ornament and you have any issues with the buttons falling off and you have access to a hot glue gun, you might want to try some hot glue, and that will dry a little bit faster as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and flip our snowman over. This is going to be the back side of the ornament. We are going to just put this piece of construction paper, we're going to write Christmas 2020 on it, and then we're going to be gluing it down right here. Now, I don't want the bottom edge of the construction paper to dip below the snowman, so I'm going to trim a little bit of it. You can hold yours up and see about how much you would need to trim. For me, probably about that much. And that way, when I glue it on, I've just got about that. That looks good to me. So I'm gonna write Christmas 2020 on mine. I'm gonna use a Sharpie. You can use red and green markers or whatever else you wanna use. Feel free to include your name or anything else that you want to. We're gonna go ahead and add some, again, very small dots of glue to the back of this. You really don't need too much for paper. Okay, so our last step is going to be to glue this hanging string on. Now, I'm gonna just knot it at the ends so that it's a little bit easier to glue on. Okay, and once you've got your knots at the end, just like that, you can go ahead and glue it on right here. This would be a great point if you do have access to a hot glue gun. That, in my experience, works the best, but if you don't have access to a hot glue gun, we're gonna use Elmer's glue instead. Okay, as you can tell, I've really just smothered it in Elmer's glue because it is going to be tricky to get it stick, especially if you're not using hot glue. This is going to take a long time to dry completely, so I'm going to let it sit overnight, and then when it's done, it's all ready to go.